Welcome to the More podcast, where we delve into stories and conversations that inspire more love, more growth, and more freedom in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Erica Steele, and today we have a very special episode lined up for you. Have you ever wondered what it means to really have freedom in your marriage? How in the world do you maintain your individuality while also nurturing a deep and loving connection with your partner? Well, if you're like me and I'm like, I don't know, you're in for a treat. Joining us today are Timothy and Tiffany Bullocks, a couple whose journey through life is nothing short of inspiration. Timothy and Tiffany have navigated the highs and the lows of marriage, discovering along the way what it means to support each other's dreams while also building a strong, and I mean strong, and united front. They're here to share their story, and insights, and practical advice on how to achieve and maintain freedom in marriage. So, whether you're single, dating, newly married, or a little seasoned couple, this episode is packed with wisdom and inspiration just for you. So, sit back, relax, and let's take a deep dive into the concept of freedom in marriage with Timothy and Tiffany Bullock. Tim, hi, Tiffany. How are you guys?
Wonderful.
Wonderful, wonderful. We love that. And we're so excited to be embarking on this new journey. And I'm so excited for more. And I just want to know more. So will you guys let us know, the vision behind more, its purpose, and why it's important to you guys?
Well, I think marriage is very important because it's the foundation of a family. So we created the More movement because we understood that there are so many marriages out there, who's going through, who need encouragement. And there's no perfect marriage, but I think you could be perfect for each other. So this, is just some information and some dialogue that we want to have to share with others. To relate to each marriage, because every marriage is tailor made. And so we can just give you bits and pieces and nuggets, how we, endure, situations, experiences. And we really wanted to know and let everybody know that, you can be married and you can overcome real experiences.
Period. Period. I love that so much. And speaking of marriage, how did you guys become a union? We want to hear the entire story and the real truthful version too, okay?
Ooh, where do we start? So our love story is quite simple, but yet it's distinct. I first start off by saying, that we're a faith-based couple, and both of our parents served in the same Reformation as pastors. So unknowingly, me and Tiffany, we crossed paths numerous occasions, but never paid in each other no attention. I didn't know her. It's crazy when we started making dialogue with each other. She was actually on my dad's farm swinging on the swings. And I had no idea that this woman was going to be my wife, this little girl, right? So we crossed paths, but it was in the year of 2005 in a very small city called Lebanon, Illinois. I went to church gatherings and I, came into church. I was a little late coming and I sat on the sixth row, and it was on the right side of the sanctuary. And I see these six young ladies on the fourth row. So it was two rows above me, and I see these six young ladies standing up. But there was a particular glow that was definitely undeniable about Tiffany when I saw her. And at that time, I was only about 15 years old, right? So it's crazy to think about. I'm only 15 years old, and I'm also looking at this glow of this young lady, and I wasn't focused on wanting to be married at the time. I'm 15, right? Who's focused on wanting to be married? In addition, I wasn't looking at her fingers, I wasn't looking at her hips, lips, and fingertips. I wasn't looking at none of that kind of stuff, but I seen her character, I seen her persona, and it spoke to me. So, just a word of advice that no matter, where you go, be true to yourself and really, live your truth and be who you are, because people who you think not looking at you, they're reading you every day. So in 2016, I finally tried to face my fear of I tried to really face my fear. Not 2016, I'm sorry, 2006.
Okay.
I really, yeah,
I was about to say,
yeah.
that's not
I'm
too
jumping,
long ago.
I'm jumping the gun here. I'm jumping the gun here. In 2006, I really started to face my fear because I am an introvert. You know, Tiffany is too, but I am an introvert, and never really in all my relationships that I had never really had to come up, to encounter, a girl. All my little girlfriends or whatever the case may be, they came after me. So it was easy, it was an easy transition. But this was one time I knew that who Tiffany was, that I had to come up with her. So I appreciate. I met Tiffany cousin named Amber. Shout out to Amber.
Okay,
I met
Amber.
her, and Amber gave me Tiffany number because I was trying to talk to Tiffany, but every time I would try to talk to her, she'll be running. I couldn't find her in church. I was just chasing after her, like, where did she go? And she just like go and hide in the van or whatever she goes and hide in the crowd. So I'm just trying to chase after her. And finally, I just got tired of it. So I went to her cousin, Amber. Amber gave me her number. And I called her one day. It was probably about 2 days upon our arrival going back to home. And all of a sudden, again, I'm used to, girls was coming after me. So the first thing I said when I picked up the phone is, I'm like, God told me you was going to be my wife. Ain't that crazy, right? Like, all of a sudden I
Crazy.
said that. It wasn't no content, didn't have anything. All I just said is, hey, God said you was gonna be my wife. And it was kind of hurtful because she was like, well, God didn't tell me that. Like you gotta keep praying about it. Like I'm not even interested. At that time, she wasn't even interested in any guys, was you? No. Yeah, wasn't even interested, So it was just through that journey where we started to, really start to talk to each other. Eventually she got, interested and she came around. I think it took her about 3 or 4 months. But after that, it was pretty easy. So just through that though, through that journey, we have, overcome some, real experiences. We got married. It was in 2009. But before we got married, that process wasn't easy. Yeah. It was not easy. And I encourage, anybody to understand that anything good is not going to come easy. The harder it is, the more sweeter it is when you get it. And sometimes we think that just because people are our destiny and people are our purpose, that it automatically connect the dots. But you're going to have some turbulence. You're going to have some hurdles, and we face many hurdles. Many hurdles that we faced, and almost we faced hurdles to the point where we almost didn't get married. I remember we kind of called it quits. How many times? Maybe 3 times, yeah. Right? We called it quits. Yeah, we called it quits, and because there were just many situations. We were trying to come together in cohesiveness from a long distance relationship. And that's a big challenge too. How do you become one, and how do you start knowing each other when you're 6 hours away? And at that time, remember, I'm 15, 16 years old when we started talking. So I couldn't drive at that time that far. So all our, conversations was over the phone. So trying to get to know somebody over the phone sometimes can be extremely hard, and because you run out of things to say. And so you just started, arguments can happen, right? Disagreements can happen. But, I appreciate those times because, we talked so much over the phone when we fell asleep over the phone talking with each other, and it was crazy because we had to go to school sometimes in the morning, and we can wake up at 5 o'clock and we hear each other on the phone, maybe snoring, or maybe the case, we're like, hey, you there? You there? You there? You still there? So, we appreciate those times. Those are the fun times. But, we got married in 2009. In 2009, then life began to take a turn. All the joyful moments that we encountered getting to where we were, and we went to Dallas on our honeymoon. But when I came back, I lost my job. And so my main job, and at that time I had, two jobs. One job I was working overnight, making, $8.50 an hour, and then the other job, back in that time, it was decent money. I was working at Sears and I think I was around $14 an hour. But I lost Sears. Sears had went out of business, and so now we're down to one job making $8.50 an hour. And just life began to take a huge turn for us, where it was exciting when we got married, where we were thrilled, but now all of a sudden now we get to the bare bones of life. We took it down to a roller coaster, to the point where we were living paycheck to paycheck. Yeah. And at that point in time, I promise you, even one paycheck didn't even cover our expenses. And so we were, just banking on the other one just to cover rent. There was times where, we were so financially depleted that, we didn't even have enough money to eat. We had to, as a man, I felt bad because, here it is, I brung, this woman, from St. Louis to Michigan, and I brung her with the expectation of making her life better, and all of a sudden her life get worse. And now, we're at, the Wendy's menu. Back in the day, Wendy's used to have a 99-cent menu with a junior bacon cheeseburger, and there's times where, I had to, allow her to eat and I didn't eat because, we just didn't have the finances. We had got so depleted. But just through the process of time, I told her one thing, that if you follow me, I was going to take you to the top. And I promised her that if you follow me, I was going to take you to the top. And so I really appreciate, her commitment and her trust, her loyalty, that she had, because at my most vulnerable time, she could have left and said, I didn't sign up for this. I'm not going to be here. I had it better in St. Louis, right? But she stuck there with me. She stuck there with me when I was at rock bottom. And I think that it's commendable when your wife and when your partner can stick with you to the tough times, because it's easy to hang out with each other. It's easy to, really, go along with people when they're at their highest height, but the challenge is, can you make it through relationship? Can you make it through marriage at your lowest lows? And so you have to really learn and adapt those vows that you have made, for better or for worse, because that was some of our worst moments. Not only that, from a financial perspective, you got to think about it. It's two of us trying to become one unit. And so you have her family culture, you have my family culture, and we're trying to come together to make a culture. It's almost like her family was speaking Spanish, mine was speaking French, and we had to come together to make English and understand each other. And so, just through all those different, moments of life, we found out that, we were meant to be with each other. So that's the beginning of our story. It's such a long,
Okay.
detailed story.
I mean, I can imagine. I mean, how many years has it been now? Is it, you said 15 years?
15
15
years.
years.
15 years. That's a long time to really know someone. They always say too, I know you guys said your dynamic was, long distance. You don't know someone until you move in with them. So I know after you guys got married and, moved in with each other, it was a whole different dynamic. But
Mhm.
as you guys vowed, to death do you part. So
Yeah.
with that being said, speaking of death doing you part, I do have a little random question just to throw at both of you guys. So I will get a response from both Tim and Tiffany. And this question is
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
just aimed to see if you guys really meant your vow from to death do us part. So
Ooh.
all right, this question is a little random and it's a little crazy and it's going to catch you off guard. And I'll give you a second to think about it if you need it, or if you have your answer, you could just spill it out.
Okay.
But I'll give you guys a little context. So, you guys flew to, let's say, you guys were taking a couple's trip to Orlando, Florida. So you guys are having a great time. Everything is going well. And all of a sudden, you guys have to split up. So Tim runs to the grocery store and, Muffin, she's still at the, well, Tiffany, she's still at the hotel. Tim accidentally runs over a woman. He leaves the scene, so he doesn't know if she's dead or alive, but he comes back to that hotel and he's, sweating. He's nervous. He's, "Tiffany, Tiffany, oh, I don't know what to do. I just hit a woman in a car." And she's like, "Where? Where did you hit her? What are you doing, Tiffany, in that moment?" And then Tim also scenario is vice versa. So you'll answer for Tiffany as well. But what are you doing? What's going through your head? Are you still with this person till death do them part, or are you turning them in immediately? So you have two options really. You can become an accomplice or you can turn them in.
Oh, I mean, definitely Diff do his part. I mean, this is my life partner, so whatever he got into, whatever he did, I'm in it too. Like we in this,
Period.
we gotta fit whatever we gotta figure it out.
So you said, "That's my man. I'm gonna stick beside him."
Stick beside.
Okay. So Tim, are you sticking beside him? And you have to
I'm
think
turning
too.
her in. I'm turning her in. No,
But I'm saying, but you also,
I
it's
am
like
not
deeper.
accomplished.
It's a little deeper than the surface level too, because you guys
Yeah,
do have a family. So you have to think about it too. Like now you have your kids at stake. If one of them does leave, I don't know. Everything
yeah.
It's
changes.
true.
You know, that's such a hard question, and I think that sometimes you don't really know what you're gonna do until you really arrive to that situation. Because you're right, we have to think about our kids, we have to think about each other, we have to think about being honest because we are, a couple of integrity, and we
Yes.
are a couple of of truth. We live our truth, and so that'll be a tough situation. Now, what I would do is, I would probably take the blame
Okay.
and let
Mhm.
my wife and my kids, really enjoy life. So I'll probably own it as the man because I think, it's great for kids to have a father, but every child needs a mother. Every child needs a mother. And so as a man, I would take on that responsibility and everything because I just
Okay,
love
well, well, luckily this is just a scenario, and both of you guys still have your freedom. But
Yes,
um,
yes,
but
yes.
speaking of freedom, today's topic is all about freedom in marriage. So, I want to get both of you guys' perspective on what freedom in marriage actually means to you.
People think freedom or marriage is a prison.
Mm.
Hmm.
And marriage is not a prison. It's really a promise. It's really, a commitment to each other. And I think that, you can have your freedom, you can have good dialogue, you can enjoy life and still, be committed to somebody. Even though you're connected with each other, you still can have your own individual space. You can still have your own individual ambitions. Just because we got married doesn't mean I have to cancel my career goals. Just because we got married don't mean she have to cancel her career goals. But we have to sit at the table, understand, what our goals is, and what the space that we need, what the time, what the money that we need, so we can be able to have that marriage, that we desire.
Yeah, Tim, I really love how you expanded on how freedom is, well, marriage is not a prison, but what are the common challenges that, couples face when seeking freedom in marriage? We're all busy individuals, we all have so much going on. So, how do you balance everything? What are the challenges?
I think the challenge is communication for a lot of couples. They don't have that open communication. You got to be willing to, have that open dialogue, be upfront, be truthful, be honest, be transparent, so the relationship can be successful. Because if you're gonna have that lifetime partner, you gotta understand each other's concerns. You gotta understand each other's, desires and what's the goal so you can be successful. So one of the challenges is communication, and I think we have to learn that as well.
Yeah.
How to communicate with each other because you may communicate one way, I may communicate a different way, but we receive it two different ways.
That's
And so
right.
I have to be able to be, that individual who can understand where she's coming from, what's her goals, what's her desires, and I got to be able to read her. Even body language, that's a communication. You got to be able to read body language because sometimes you don't have to say anything,
Yeah.
but your body language speaks more volume than sometimes your voice. So it's very important to understand how to have that open dialogue because the more open dialogue communication is the bridge, to take us from where we are to where we need to be.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is great. Communication is most definitely key. And I really like how you brought in your personal experience with it and said, me and Tiffany, that's something that we had to learn because there's so many different communication styles. I know some people are non-confrontational, some people would rather have that hard conversation then and there. Some people need time to prepare to have tough
Absolutely.
conversations. So it's really interesting that, communication or enhancing your communication is one way, but how would you say that you're able to, well, how did you become, well, okay, no. How did you guys work together to understand each other's communication styles?
I think we have to start knowing each other.
Yeah.
I think we spend a lot of times with, wanting people to know us, but sometimes we slack on trying to know the other individual.
Right.
And so when you know each other and when you start learning each other, it becomes more easy.
Yeah.
And because you want to go into a marriage, and you want to go into communication, understanding I'm in it to please that other individual. I'm in it to understand where that other individual comes from. And so if one side learn how to understand where one side coming from and the other side vice versa, I think you meet together and you come together in cohesiveness where it start working out. But you gotta build that trust. You got to break down the trust barriers because I think we all come with trust barriers and we have to break it down and learn how to communicate with each other and it's okay to be confrontational. I always say it's okay because sometimes we try to run from conflict, but conflict is so healthy for
Yes.
a relationship, for marriage, because you don't understand how strong your connection is until you go through conflict, until you go through struggle, until you go through that argument. You got to be able to have those tough conversations. And sometimes those conversations, you may cry through it, right? You may get upset, but at the end of the day, you can channel your way through it and understand where each other coming from and you can break down those barriers.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just like to add that it definitely takes time. It's not nothing that happens right away. You definitely have to put in the time and put in the work.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Speaking of like putting in time, and well, in relationships, relationships are complicated. You guys both have your own separate lives and you have now been married and you come together as one. So a lot of people struggle with identities when it comes to marriage. Because one person and within the relationship may have a life and the other person may not have a life. So how do you find balance between that? And how important is it for each couple to have their own hobbies and stuff outside of the relationship, if that makes sense to you guys?
I'm gonna actually let Tiffany answer that one first. How do you balance out? Because I'm super duper career oriented and focused. So how do you balance it out?
So can you repeat the
Yeah,
question?
so for sure, because I know it's kind of wordy. But so basically, how important is it for you to have in your relationship to have your own life, your own goals, your own hobbies that have nothing to do with Tim? Because I know a lot of relationships struggle because one person, they have more going on in life than the other person, and the other person may solely need, the attention from their partner.
Right. Okay, so that definitely applies to us. I mean, Tim, he's career oriented, and I am the world we live in called it a domestic engineer or a
Mhm.
home manager. So how I balance everything is I understand that he is busy. I understand that he, you know, has his thing, and I have tried to find ways to keep myself busy and keep myself occupied. And I mean, being a mother is, is very, very hard. And I mean, if I didn't do anything else, just trying to master being a mom is, enough. But, I've tried different hobbies and try to keep myself, occupied and not be lonely.
Yeah, for sure.
And for me, like she said, I am career oriented because um, I understand where I had to be as a man to provide for my family, and so I missed out on a lot, right? Trying to be, focus on getting us where we need to be, and I think it's important to understand as a couple, how who is driven, who's not, as it relates to that career. Now Tiffany is driven in making sure the home is right. She balanced me out, because if both of us was career oriented, I don't think our household would work
Yeah.
because I am super busy. I'm getting pulled from all type of directions. I'm on the phone a lot. I'm not just the district manager, but sometimes I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a counselor, banker, preacher. I got all these things and all these, occupations. And so she balances me out sometimes. She, if it ain't nothing but, telling me, hey, you can make it today. You can,
Yeah.
she's praying for me. Keeping, the house clean, the clothes, you're keeping the kids going to all day, different activities. And so it's a balance out that we have that just makes our marriage work. And it's not the marriage that we see now where everybody is working, everybody is moving and grooving. We kind of have the traditional marriage, but traditional works for us.
Okay. Yeah, you have to do what works for you, period. Speaking of doing what works for you, what advice would you have for couples, seeking to foster more freedom in their marriage? So, couples are struggling, they feel like they're trapped. What advice do you give them?
I think number one, you have to set boundaries
Hmm.
with each other. It's very important to communicate your needs to each
Mhm.
other. And if something is bothering you, you really just try make that person feel comfortable to communicate their bother. You don't want a person to feel uncomfortable because as a couple, we supposed to be each other's safe space.
Mhm.
We're supposed to be each other, confidant where you can go and I can just kind of unveil all my feelings, my emotions, and how I'm feeling. And so setting those clear boundaries and those expectations of what I need and what you need, and we come together with an understanding, I think we can have a successful marriage.
Mhm.
Nice, awesome. Are there any other tips that you would give to, couples in general when it comes to just freedom, besides boundary setting and having, that communication? How about trust? Like, how important is trust, when it comes to having freedom in relationships?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think trust is key.
Yes.
I trust Tiffany and Tiffany trusts me to the fullest, like, right, I think about say I'm at work, right? I'm at work working, all these hours and I trust Tiffany to the point where I know that, right, a lot of people they have that insecurity, is my wife or is my partner, is my husband, stepping out on me, if they doing all this kind of, uncharacteristic stuff that, that promotes bad behavior. I don't have to worry about that with Tiffany. I trust her totally. I trust her with my heart.
Yeah.
I trust her with my pocket. I trust her, with
That's
my children.
right.
So I trust her. She has never gave me a reason not to trust her. And I think as a man, when he can trust his wife, I think you have really created, a place for him where he can come, where there's no hidden agendas, because he knows that he has a woman who can be there right by his side and be able to aid him in the very needs that he needs.
Yes. I 100% agree. That is great. Without trust, there is no relationship, period. Like, might as well pack the bags up. Oh, well, wow, what an incredible conversation today with Tim and Tiffany. Their journey and their insights on finding freedom in marriage have truly, truly been enlightening. And we really hope that you as a viewer have, taken something away from this conversation. I really, really hope that you guys found, this conversation as inspirational and, as practical as I did, especially as a single woman. Like, I'm like, okay, like that's what you guys do. Okay, okay. Trust is important. Okay. Remember, creating freedom within your relationship is about open communication, mutual respect, supporting each other's individual growth while also nurturing your bond as a couple. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us today for the first episode of the More podcast hosted by Timothy and Tiffany Bullocks. And we want to thank them for sharing their openness and their wisdom. And it's just truly appreciated. And your story is truly inspirational. And to our listeners, we want to thank you for tuning in into another episode of the first episode of the More podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring you more amazing content that we are so excited to see or so excited to put out into the world. And, just to say it, this is just the start. Tim and Tiffany, they had this vision and it's going to birth so much more. So we can't wait to continuously share more and more and more and more with you guys. So, with that being said, stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to explore more ways to bring love, growth, and freedom into your marriage. Until next time, I'm Erica Steele. We have Tim and Tiffany Bullocks, and this has been the More Podcast. Keep striving for more in your relationships, and remember, freedom in marriage is possible with the right mindset and effort. Okay? You need to have effort. Thank you guys again for joining, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Right. See ya.